Hi guys, and welcome to Mrs. B Teaches English. Today we are looking at the poem Zulu Girl by Roy Campbell. This poem is all about oppression and the rising or looming revolution due to it. So Roy Campbell was born in 1901 in Durban and educated in Durban, and then spent a year in Oxford before returning home, where he established a literary magazine. Campbell really used irony and humor very effectively to expose and criticize people, often targeting Afrikaners. He lived in France and Spain and served in the English army in the Second World War, and eventually settled in Portugal, where he died in a vehicle accident in 1957. Now let's read through the poem together, and as I read through it, I want you to really try and summarize this for yourself. He says, when in the sun the hot red acres smoulder, down where the sweating gang its labor plies, a girl flings down her hoe, and from her shoulder unslings her child, tormented by flies. She takes him to a ring of shadow, pulled by the thorn tree, purpled with the blood of ticks, while her sharp nails in slow caresses ruled prowl through his hair with sharp electric clicks. His sleepy mouth, plugged by the heavy nipple, tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. Through his frail nerves her own deep languors ripple, like a broad river sighing through the reeds. Yet in that drowsy stream his flesh imbibes an old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat, the curb ferocity of beaten tribes, the sullen dignity of their defeat. Her body looms over him like a hill, within whose shade a village lies at rest, or with the first cloud so terrible and still that bears the coming harvest in its breast. So if we look at a summary of this poem, it's really a poem that uses an ordinary situation of a young mother breastfeeding her child to meditate on the suppressed energy of African people, which the poet believes will inevitably bring about a revolution. So he's commenting on a situation that he witnesses or observes, saying that he does not agree with it and that he sees that an uprising will follow. So let's jump into a line-by-line analysis of this poem by Roy Campbell. The poem begins with a fairly simple observed situation, and the poet then develops and reflects upon it as he continues. We see that in line 1 and 2 he says, when in the sun the hot red acres smoulder, down where the sweating gang its labor plies. So this really creates an image of unbearable hot environment in which these people find themselves. The heat scorches the land where this girl is working. The sun already implies that it is hot. Red, of course, is a color that is predominantly not only associated with hot, but also the color of the African earth. And it suggests heat, of course. So the red hot acres emphasizes this intense heat throughout the land. And then the word smoulder. In that metaphor, the land is compared to a fire that burns without a flame. This can burst into flames at any time. Similarly, the land is so hot that it will burst into flames. So, and then finally the word sweating here. Sweating emphasizes the unbearable hot environment, the extreme physical labor that they are forced to endure, and this all creates a lot of sympathy for these workers. The word gang suggests that the workers have no individuality and identity and are treated rather like prisoners, or are being made to undertake forced labor. They have no personal pride or pleasure in the work that they are doing. They seem to be forced to do it. Then line 3 and 4, a girl flings down her hoe, and from her shoulder unslings her child, tormented by flies. So now we focus on one individual within this group. These lines emphasize the unpleasant nature of the gang's work. The girl has no identity. She is really not described as an individual with a name and a face. She's just another person. She's an adult, but referred to as a girl. This is really the consequence of oppression, to make her sound even less than she is. So the speaker focuses on a girl who slings down her hoe to unsling her child. And this can really be seen as an act of defiance, because she's not just putting it down, she's flinging it. This suggests she doesn't drop it, she throws it down. She has impatience and exasperation that she's experiencing, and it can really be seen as though she does not care about the authority anymore. She is truly fed up. The child is tormented with flies. This is another link to the environment, but what we notice is that even though she might not want him to be here, she has no choice. She has to bring him to work. So she carries this child on her back while she works, and she's forced to look after her child and herself. She has no choice but to bring him to the field. And of course, you can imagine, if it's already that hard to work in this heat, doing that with a child and that extra weight on your back, it must be unbearable. The phrase tormented by flies really suggests that even the innocent child suffers. It is tortured by flies. It cannot chase it away because it's a baby, and also he's wrapped up on her back. So in line 5 and 6 we read that she takes him to a ring of shadow, pulled by the thorn trees, purpled with the blood of ticks. In stanza 2 we read how the mother, in the meager shade of the thorn trees, is searching the hair of the child for ticks. So she finds a small patch of shade where she can take her son. Again, the details suggest that there is poverty and unsanitary conditions under which these laborers are living. There's a ring which really suggests that it's a very small piece of shade that she has found, and it emphasizes that there is no escape from the intense heat. The word pooled is a contrasting image to the heat. We usually associate pool with water and a cooling effect, but here it is simply ironic because there is no real escape from the heat. The thorn tree provides them with a little bit of shade where she's now looking for ticks. So the phrase purpled with the blood of ticks, that area has become purple with all the blood of the ticks, emphasizing how many ticks there are and how often they come here. This emphasizes again poverty and unhygienic conditions under which these laborers live. We then move to lines 7 and 8, while her sharp nails in slow caresses rule, prowl through his hair with sharp electric clicks. The mother searches through the hair for the ticks, and this whole image that is created here is of a predator, because predators prowl, but it's an act of love and care mother is involved in. So we see that despite her tough life, she still cares deeply for her child, and her child is her first priority. We notice sharp nails and slow caresses, prowl, sharp electric clicks. These are all animal-like gestures. And again, I want you to think of a predator that is prowling, looking for its prey, and here the prey is the ticks. This all conveys an image of a strong, protective mother. Her nails have been deliberately sharpened to enable her to kill the ticks quickly, emphasizing again poverty and the squalor that they live in. She does not have any other way of dealing with it. It's not like they can get pesticides or insecticides to kill them or chase away the flies. In slow caresses, that phrase, there's a gesture of love and care here. Despite her tough life, she cares deeply for her child. The word ruled means that she's searching systematically. So maybe she's moving the hair away from one spot to another as she's searching him. Then I want you to focus on the word prowl. Here there's a metaphor that is created as her fingers are like a fierce animal searching through the forest or the veld for its prey. And the way she searches for the ticks is compared to that animal that is searching for its prey, which is then the ticks that it finds. And when it does find it, the fingers kill the ticks. Sharp electric clicks, again we have a metaphor there. The sound of the ticks being killed are compared to the sound of an electric spark. So this sharp electric click that is produced when she finds the tick and cracks it between her fingernails produces a sound like that given by an electric spark that you are familiar with. We then move to stanza 3. His sleepy mouth, plugged by the heavy nipple, tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. So immediately we notice that in the previous stanza the mother has been compared to an animal, a predator, and now again the child is being compared to a puppy. This really has a very negative connotation, as the speaker is in fact dehumanizing these two human beings, emphasizing the oppression that they experience. The sleepy mouth there is a sign of exhaustion from the heat and then perhaps being underfed. He tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. We have that onomatopoeia. So in the simile in stanza 3, the child is being compared to a puppy because of the way that he's feeding from the mother. He's harmless and innocent, and we see that the milk that he is consuming is more than just a nutritional substance, and the reader is informed that the child is absorbing much more than just the milk. So the grunting there is an animal-like quality of this boy as he feeds. He's too young to talk, and he's grunting because he's greedily drinking, and this can be a simple expression of deep satisfaction. The sequence of the ugly vowel sounds that we have in grunting really is intensifying the animal simile that the speaker is searching to create in this line. And it is also creating some onomatopoeia, illustrating how greedily he drinks. Then line 11 and 12, the poet goes on to describe the deep, strong feelings which pass in a steady, inevitable flow from the mother to the child. And here the simile of the broad river is very suitable. The speaker says, through his frail nerves, her own deep languors ripple, like a broad river sighing through the reeds. So the frail nerves there refer to the irritation, the irritableness that she is experiencing, and languors there, tenderness. Again, we have some onomatopoeia, sighing of the reeds, or the river that flows through the reeds, imitating the sound of the river as it moves slowly through the reeds. So her milk is compared to a river that is flowing, and in this river she's conveying more than just nutrition. She is also conveying her own irritation and tenderness. So the child expresses how she feels, the mother's deep tiredness, irritation and low energy, her languors flowing into her child. And the sighing there is the sound of the water as it moves. This also represents the satisfaction of the baby and gives us a much more calm mood that is being experienced here. Then lines 13 and 14, yet in that drowsy stream his flesh imbibes an old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat. Like I said, the baby is now calming down from the point where he was drinking greedily. He is now calmer due to the heat and the nourishment. and he's perhaps starting to fall asleep. The word yet there shows a turning point. This word really conveys that it is not only the mother's languors that the child is taking in, but also the strength, the old unquenched, unsmotherable heat, the strength of the Zulu nation. So stanza 4 arouses out increased attention with an unexpected switch of thought, almost like a paradox would. In the physical sense, it is obviously the child which is drinking from its mother. In another sense, we are now told that her flesh is, in a deeper sense, imbibing something from the drowsy stream. The old unquenched really refers to an old desire that has not been satisfied. Unsmotherable refers to something that cannot be extinguished. And again, we have this sense of heat. But here it is not physical heat. It refers to anger or hatred that is building up, that this mother is transferring to the baby with her milk and her irritation and her tiredness that she is feeling. Line 15 and 16, the curbed ferocity of beaten tribes, the sullen dignity of their defeat. Here, these lines refer to the African tribes that were beaten into submission by the colonizers. So beaten, they were oppressed. Despite their oppressed state, these tribes are still ferocious and they keep their dignity, their self-respect, and even though they are defeated, and that is the sullen dignity that is referred to. This really emphasizes the deep-rooted resentment that they must be feeling, and this is what the mother is conveying to her child. There's a change in tone from the harmony to aggression here. So from where the baby was greedily drinking to calming down, it now moves into aggression. The Zulu people have courage and zeal, and nothing will stop them, the speaker says. Then we move to the last stanza, stanza 5. Her body looms above him like a hill, within whose shade a village lies at rest. So this village is protected, and it's almost prophetic of a looming confrontation. The mother stands above her child, but she seems more imposing and stronger than she was at the beginning. She represents the mothers of all children in the tribe. She is protecting all of them. Here we see that there's a simile. The mother is standing over her child and is being compared to a huge hill that protects the village. The mother stands above her child, but she seems stronger. She stands guard over her child against anyone who would dare to hurt him. She is no longer just a single exploited, hard-working individual in some remote part of the veldt. Despite the suffering and battle to survive, they will triumph. The Zulu people will triumph. Then we move into the last two lines. Or the first cloud so terrible and still that bears the coming harvest in its breast. So we see that there's a second comparison here. First, she's being compared to a hill. Now she's being compared to a cloud. This cloud makes us think of a violent storm that might be approaching. And this storm will bring rain, and from the rain there will be a harvest. And this harvest can be very metaphorical in the sense of that it will be freedom from the oppression. So these lines refer to the storm clouds, which look harmless, just like the people look harmless because they're being oppressed, but it will bring intense weather and eventually it will benefit the land. So the mother is being compared to a cloud here. The poem moves into its prophetic climax, and the Zulu girl, as we have seen, takes on the significance of a symbol. She's no longer a single stray, exploited, hardworking individual. She represents to us the potentiality of her race for suffering, survival, and triumph. So they are gathering strength, and one day they will unleash a huge storm on the people, and it will bring the harvest of war, just as rains will bring harvest, and this will lead to their freedom. And just like you cannot predict exactly when a storm will arrive, it is the same with this woman and her tribe. They are gathering strength, and one day they will unleash that revolution. And we really end this poem on a very hopeful note, because we believe in this strength of the Zulu tribe that is building. And that's the end of this poem. So if we look now at imagery, we see that there's imagery that creates a sense of heat and that lazy atmosphere. If you think of the hot red acres that smolder, and we have imagery of satisfaction as the child is feeding, and then some imagery of impending doom and rebellion, as this hill is portrayed by the mother, as well as the cloud, this ominous cloud. And finally, there is some imagery that creates fear, because we know that there's a revolution on the horizon. The ultimate theme, or overall theme, of this poem is that the poem contrasts the peaceful life of the Zulu people with their dramatic history of struggle and defeat. It suggests that their pride and will to resist is still strong, and that they will rise up against their oppressors in the future. In terms of form and structure, this poem consists of 5 quatrains, so 5 stanzas of 4 lines, and then the rhyme scheme is regular, with every first and third line rhyming, and every second and fourth line will be rhyming. Then in terms of tone, we can see that there's development in tone throughout the poem. In stanza 1, we start off with a almost neutral tone as the scene is set and described, with these hard-working people in the heat. Then it moves to a more calm sleepiness, with the underlying threatening feeling of this mother. In stanza 3, it's calm and intimate as the baby feeds from her. Stanza 4 moves into a more of a hidden menace, aggression and passion, as the poet describes how the baby absorbs with its mother's milk the knowledge and the zeal of the Zulu people. And stanza 5 then describes the mother's body rising above the baby, first with a positive tone, and then it really hits us with this ominous mood that is set and created by the words such as looms, which means that it's imminent. And the poet portrays the mother's body as a thundercloud, bringing a terrible storm that will lead to a revolution. I hope this has helped you to deepen your understanding of The Zulu Girl by Roy Campbell.